Hey guys, it's Kate. I hope you're having a great day. I'm here with another intuitive painting slash mixed media with some of the collage papers that we made together in a video not that long ago. I grabbed some of my matte medium and my catalyst wedge, but you could use a spatula or any kind of tool you want and just go nuts with the collage paper. I'm working on a mixed media page that is, I think, around 95 pounds paperweight, and I am just gluing down my random pieces of collage paper. And I really like starting this way because it just gets some marks and interest and color down on the page immediately. And you don't have to, I mean, you don't have to keep any of it in your final piece, but it just helps get the ball rolling. I like to either start with some collage. I also really like starting with my Posca pen or a charcoal pencil or anything that I can just use as a base layer. And it doesn't even matter what you're scribbling, what you're gluing down, what colors you're using, or what material you're using. It's just getting something on that paper to break your blank page. And so after I glue down a few collage pieces, I'm going to go in with my favorite charcoal pencil, and I'm just making some random marks, although I do end up kind of using this little sort of starburst pattern and I turn it into a big flower later. But this is kind of the process that I used to get there. So I was thinking more of kind of a radial sort of setup on this page. So that was something that I had in mind at the beginning, but I didn't really have a direction after that. So I'm just adding some color. I really love using this silicone tool. It just helps do a nice thin layer of paint so you can almost put on like a glaze and still see a lot of the marks underneath. And I'm working on this really cute little yellow color and just adding some brightness and warmth to the background. And you can still see some of my collage papers coming through and everything. And then I'm going to go in with that sort of bluish green color, and I really liked how that went with the yellow, and I'm just sort of following along some of those lines left behind by the charcoal. So here is where I started experimenting just a little bit with the silicone and making some interesting shapes, and then kind of rubbing back some of that paint with my tool and just kind of experimenting with just removing some of the layers. And you can see when you rub a certain way with the silicone, you can really scrape back quite a bit of paint. And I'm just kind of going along and splashing some of my alcohol ink that I made homemade on this background, and then going back in with the charcoal. I really love the charcoal, and this is one of those woodless pencils, so I don't even really ever bother sharpening it or anything. I just kind of turn it around and use the sides. And this is where I started almost making some little leaf shapes or petal shapes. And I started to really think about making a nice little flower here. But I really love making these big flowers, almost like a sunflower shape, and it's one of my favorite ones. So I'm just kind of going along with that and still just adding some colors and texture to the outside. So I'm making it almost like a graffiti on the outside, kind of splotchy with the paint, but keeping the values kind of close. And then I'm almost thinking of making foliage here, but not really any specific foliage shapes. And then I'm going to go in with some more colors in the pinks and purples. So I'm starting with some more of the alcohol ink and just putting some splashes on the page there and letting it mix in with that green. And when your acrylic paint is still a little bit wet, the alcohol ink tends to spread out more in that, but really like that effect. And then I'm going back in with the purple and I'm really concentrating it toward that center area, which ends up being the center of my flower later. So now I'm just going in with my brush and putting in some very loose petals, and I am going to be kind of doing some layering with this just to make it nice and loose and very flowy. And I'm letting that pink really blend with some of that green behind it. And I'm just sort of loosely marking out the center of my flower and just drawing the petals. And you can see where that purple alcohol ink kind of dried a little bit, faded, but it left some of those nice little blob textures behind when it dried. And I'm kind of embracing that green blending here and adding some more to that pink. I really like the mix of colors on the page, and they're not all blended, but they just make some really neat little brush stroke marks. And I'm going back in with my blue to add some more of that goes along with those sort of curvy lines I had in the background a few layers back. And I was sort of on the fence on which side I wanted to have that blue on, but then I really loved it mixed with that pink from the petals. And I'm just going around and getting the petals where I want them. And I'm kind of leaving the background mostly alone at this point. And now is where I'm going to be adding a little bit more contrast. So as you can see, a lot of the paper now is very mid-tone. I have a little bit of the darkness from my charcoal coming through, but everything else is kind of one note. So I am going to be focusing now on adding contrast in. So I'm adding some white and pink, and then I'm also outlining my petals a little bit to kind of make them pop off the background. The pink is a different color than the green, but they're both kind of the same brightness level, so they sort of blend together. So I'm just adding that as another way to just make it pop a little more. And then I'm kind of looking at it and just seeing how I like things and decide to put more alcohol ink on, which I really love how it dries. And it just adds this nice little texture. And a little spray of yellow in the center for good measure. And so I'm taking the tape off, but I'm not really done yet. I end up kind of looking it over and deciding that I really need to add something else. So it's dried here, and I decide to go back in with some of that yellow. And I thought that this was the perfect addition just to add some more texture, some more interest to those flower petals. And I'm being very messy and loose with it. I don't want to take away from a lot of that nice texture that you get from the silicone tool, kind of brushing out those shapes. And then we're gonna go ahead and finish up this painting. But this one was a lot of fun to make, and it just kind of came out of nowhere. So I think if you go in when you're starting a painting like this and you are thinking about what direction you want to take something, thinking of a possible composition might help you decide what your final piece is going to look like. But here is your close-up, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you try something like this on your own, and until next time, keep creating.